Good evening, and welcome to another program presented to you by the Moorish Science Temple of America. We are very proud to bring you these informative programs as we try to do as often as we can. We are truly inspired by the teachings of our prophet, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I'm very happy again to have some of our familiar guests with us on this television program, some of which you've probably seen before. To my far left here, I have, as usual, our brother, P. Davis Hill. Welcome.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you here. And in the middle, we have the most distinguished brother with us. We haven't seen him for a while, but we're glad that he's back here again. That's the I. Davis Hill.
I'm glad to be here, too.
Thank you.
Indeed.
You're very much needed, put it that way.
Praise Allah.
Today our topic is about us. Mainly, we have a lot of questions that was presented to us by quite a few of our listening audience. And we just said, well, hey, we're going to talk about that this evening. We're going to talk about the Moorish Americans. Just who are the Moorish Americans? Why do we have such a nationality as Moorish Americans? Brother I. Davis Hill, where did the concept of Moorish Americans come from? What can you tell our audience about the Moorish Americans and its derivative?
Well, you know, we know that historically our people have been known as Moors. We know that we're Moorish Americans because our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, told us we was that. He also informed us to spend an hour in an up-to-date library. And upon research, you'll discover that you are, in fact, of Moorish descent. So we know, based upon the guidance of the Honorable Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, that we are Moorish American. Otherwise, we would have not known. We would have not had any clue as to where to look for our nationality.
So Moorish American is a nationality.
Oh, truly. Moorish American is as much as a nationality as an Italian American or an Irish American. The fact is, every group of people has a national descent. You know, it's a part of being a human being.
Well, let me ask you like this. Why are we Moorish Americans?
Our Prophet Noble Drew Ali has told us that we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America, because we're here to uplift fallen humanity. And the only people who can do that are people with a nationality. You have to know who you are in order to know where you're headed or going. And in our case, we're Moorish Americans because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America.
I see. When you say descendants of Moroccan, could you be a little bit more specific? I mean, where is the Moroccan Empire?
Well, the Moroccan Empire comprises the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, including the Americas. North America, South America, Central America, including Mexico, of course.
You're speaking of continents, then.
Indeed.
Well, you know, I'd like to just go back to a piece of literature that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali guided the Moorish Americans on. And in that piece of literature, he specifically says that the present Moroccan Empire is northwest, southwest, a Mexim.
Indeed.
A Mexim. And I want to get this brother in here. We don't want him to be too laid back there. What is he saying, geographically speaking, Brother P. Davis Hill?
He's saying that long before the Europeans came to America, long before the Europeans realized that the world was round, that our people, the people who are referred to in these modern days as being Negroes, colors, and blacks, we refer to them as being Moors, that they were here in America, North, South, and Central America, and they also lived in what's called Africa. The two lands were once together, and they were separated by the great earthquake. Prior to that earthquake, there was free travel across the land.
I see.
There was trade, and there were rivers for transportation, and our people inhabited both lands. And of course, the earthquake occurred and caused a separation between the peoples of our people of that part of Mexico and the people in this part of Mexico. But we're all the same people.
I see. You know, that's very interesting too, and I want to make I want to highlight that just a little bit, if I may. The so-called slaves, so-called Negro, blacks, and coloreds, who were known, who history has shown that they were slaves, came from Northwest Africa. So based on the information that the brother P. David Seal just gave us, anyone who has gone through slavery, who came from that area, the west coast of Africa, is in a sense, well, according to all divine records, is a Moorish American, or has the potential to proclaim the nationality of Moorish American. Should we say it that way?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So, how does one become a Moorish American? Let's say, for instance, now before you answer, let me just set it up for you real good. All right? John Adams down the street is from Mississippi. Great-grandfather was a slave. From his great-grandfather all the way up to him, all he's ever known is to be called Negro, black, or colored. He suddenly hears the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali on this television program, perhaps, and says, I want to become a Moorish American. How does he do that?
There's a process, of course, and it's a process of coming alive, of waking up. Any intelligent person, sooner or later, is going to come to the realization that you really can't be black, because there's no such thing as a black person. There's no such history as black history. There's no such land or nation known as black land or black nation. You soon realize that Negro, colored, and black, and even African American, are artificial terms, and they refer to artificial people, no real people with any real history, with any real forefathers, with any real accomplishments. And the intelligent one will realize that these terms are no longer sufficient. They're no longer adequate. And so the intelligent mind begins to inquire, well, just who are we? And begins to think about it, begins to investigate. And upon investigating, sooner or later, if he goes to a library, he's going to come across the term Moor or Moorish. And he may even realize that somewhere in his background, he's already encountered that term. In the movies, for example, Sidney Poitier, a long time ago, started a movie called The Long Ships about a Moor. Of course, Othello, which is probably the most popular play in the English language, is the story of a Moor. So there's probably not a so-called Negro, black, or colored person in America who has not read about Othello, who doesn't know that Othello was a Moor, without realizing that he himself is a Moor. And so when the person begins to come awake, he begins to look for his history, look for his origin. And that origin will lead him to the term Moor, and eventually it will lead him to the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Okay. Interesting process. But This guy Adams, who's from Mississippi, he hears all of this. He's probably watching this now. How does he become a Moorish American according to the rules of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Well, he can come and visit us. And we encourage any of our people who call themselves Negroes, colored folks, black people, and African Americans, we encourage them to cease and desist from calling themselves such terrible names immediately. It's a shame for our people to continue to call themselves names that refer to slavery, refer to the institution of slavery. Those names were given to slaves by slaveholders. Now that slavery is over, there is no reason to hold on to those names. There's no one forcing us to continue to call ourselves Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, and even African American. African American is no better. It's not much better than calling yourself a Negro, black, or colored, because all of those are artificial terms. They don't refer to any real people with any real history. But to get back to the specifics of your question, we encourage that individual to come and visit us at the Moorish Science Temple of America. You'll find the name, the address, and the telephone number probably at the end of the program.
Or during the program.
Or during the program. To come and visit us at the Moorish Science Temple of America. Come with an open mind. Bring your friends. Bring your family. And come prepared to just sit and listen for a while. And to ask some questions. We're not browbeating anyone to join the Moorish Science Temple of America. We only want those to join the Moorish Science Temple of America who are convinced through this process of waking up that they are indeed descendants of Moroccans and born in America, and therefore they are Moorish Americans. We want them to be convinced of that. We're not trying to convince them of something that's against their will, do something against their will. We want them to come into this willingly as free men and free women.
Excellent.
You know, the fact is that my view of slave history, you know, as we know it, and I've read it extensively, upon waking up, I wanted to know. So I spent a little time in the library, and I wanted to investigate the Pacific phrase of our people being from the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, because I wanted to know who I was. And upon investigation, I discovered that slavery actually started in Morocco and went down the coast. It started from north to south, which was the Moroccan Empire. So with that bit of information, I was able to obviously discover my nationality. I was able to understand that slavery was systematic. It makes sense, being that slavery was initiated, should I say, by the European nations. Europe is 11 miles from Morocco. 11 miles, which is not very far. So upon touching down with Morocco and thus enslaving some of the people, it proceeded down the coast, southward. And when I looked at the direct correlation between the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, you discover places like Virginia, Mississippi, Maryland, and other states that slavery actually started from. So it's logical, not only from a scientific perspective, but from a commonsensical perspective.
Excellent.
But in relation to your question, our Prophet Noble Drew Ali has told us that nationality is free, not only here but all over the world. And all our people has to do, because the Moorish Science Temple of America is the only legitimate organization in America that can teach nationality and be recognized by the governments of the world, is come into the Moorish Science Temple of America, take out your nationality card, and thus become a legitimate Moorish American, proclaiming to the world that you are in fact a Moorish American. And of course practicing, because we do practice love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Those are our principles, the principles of our ancient forefathers.
Very good, brother. I mean, I feel honored, again, to be sitting in the presence of such great Moorish scholars. I'm overwhelmed. But you know, something is ringing in my head, in addition to what you two brothers just laid out so wonderfully, and that is the fact that Adams, this guy Adams down the street, who's probably watching this program, is saying, now, I know what I have to do to proclaim my nationality as Moorish American. He's probably saying, I have to come into the temple, sit down at some of those meetings, and hear what they're talking about. And once I hear what they're talking about, then I have the choice to make in terms of becoming a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, thereby receiving my nationality as a Moorish American. Excellent. Very good. Now, if I was Mr. Adams, I would jump to that opportunity, especially knowing that membership is free. Membership is free in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I think I paid like $1.35, and that's just for the nationality card. And that's just for the printing of the materials. It doesn't cost anything. It didn't cost me anything. But I know some of our listening audience is asking some of those questions. Now, here's a big, gigantic question for you. Is it illegal to be a Moorish American?
Oh, no.
Is it illegal?
No, not at all. In fact, it is in the United States of America, in this government, this constitutional republic, it is illegal to not proclaim a free national name and religion before the government.
So what you're saying is, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just really got to insert this question as you're delivering.
Yeah.
It's illegal not to proclaim a nationality.
Right. In the United States of America. Okay. Because in order to be a citizen and to participate fully on an equal basis with other citizens, then you must proclaim your free national name and religion. Because this republic is established, this republic is established for those who are free and national. So that becomes an absolute requirement for citizenship, for inclusion in the body politic of the United States of America, in order to have any legal rights whatsoever in this government. So it's, and by slavery itself having been abolished.
What year was slavery abolished?
In 1865.
Is there any law that's available to say that slavery was abolished?
The 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery.
The Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution of the United States.
Supreme law of the land.
Yes. Abolished slavery. And when you abolish something, you wipe it out completely and everything that's connected with it, including the names that the slaves were referred to, were used to refer to the slaves, such as Negro, black, colored, and African American, and so forth and so on. Those were slave names. And when the institution of slavery became illegal or unconstitutional in 1865, so did those terms, Negro, black, and colored, and other derogatory terms. I know we don't think of Negro, black, and colored as being derogatory terms, but they are just as derogatory as the word nigger. They're just as bad. Calling one's self black is terrible for a civilized individual to do. He is denying the existence of divinity within himself by calling himself such a thing. But to get back to the question that you posed to this person who happens to be watching the program, when he realizes that he's not a Negro, colored, and black, and he realizes that his nationality is Moorish American, I'm sure he's going to be intellectually uplifted, because it's going to fill a gigantic void in his mind, in his history. But beyond that, it can do so much more for us as a people. It can change the legal status of our people here in America. For the last 31 years or so, 32 years, those who call themselves Negroes, coloreds, and blacks here in America have been living under a granted privilege of so-called civil rights and not under constitutional rights for many, many years. They are not citizens.
So you're saying it's a difference between civil rights and constitutional rights?
There's a difference. There's a world of difference between civil rights and constitutional rights. Only free people who have nationality, who have a history, who have an origin, can have citizenship rights as defined by the Constitution. Keep in mind that when the Constitution was put together, it was put together only to include those who were free and national. It was not put together to include any slaves, those who who couldn't point to a nationality, those who had broken their own laws by failing to honor their own forefathers. That's why they were put in slavery in the first place, because they failed to honor their own forefathers. And they didn't think that nationality and divine creed was that important. So they allowed themselves to be called Negroes, blacks, and colors, and they lost their international rights. They lost their international identity, therefore they could not claim any constitutional rights in this new republic called the United States of America. They couldn't claim any. And so the only rights that they could petition the government for was civil rights. Civil rights, affirmative action, and all of those things. And that's what they've been existing under for the past 130-something years. But we as Moorish Americans, by proclaiming our nationality, we can alter our political and legal status in this government
Right
immediately,
here
right now, just by proclaiming our nationality. And when we do it together, then we elevate our international status as well. So just by doing that, by proclaiming our nationality with us together, not individually, but together, then we all can alter our political status, our legal status, and as a consequence, our economic status here in the United States of America.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now we know that we are legal. I mean, I actually knew it all the time, I have to admit that. But for our listening audience, I'd like to pose those kind of questions, because
Yes, for sure.
those are some of the questions that we have been getting, and the tremendous amount of mail that we've been receiving, the tremendous amount of calls that we've been receiving on our voicemail as well as when we're there, and they want to know. We know now, you've heard it, it's legal to proclaim your nationality. Some of our people have a problem with being called American, Brother I. David Self. They say, I don't want to have anything to do with America. America this. America, from the teachings of our Prophet Noble Durali, is our land as just as much as it is anyone else's land. We're part of this government just as much as anyone else is. And one thing that I think is paramount is that America is a continent. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
So Canada is in North America.
That's Mexico.
So these people are Americans too, is that right?
Indeed.
South America is a continent. The Venezuelans are Americans. They just live in the southern part
Of the Americas.
of the Americas. I think we have an organization called Organization
Of American States.
of American States. Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
So some of the islands, the American islands are involved in that too, right?
That's right.
Cuba,
yeah,
Right.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Okay.
And
You,
to get back to you, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to just emphasize the point that you were making. All of our people who call themselves Negroes, colors, and blacks didn't come over here in slave ships.
good point.
As we pointed out, many of our people were already here in America long before the Europeans arrived and long before the first slave ship arrived. In fact, our people are the original inhabitants of this land that's called America. In the history, they are referred to as Indians. Even in the American history, they are referred to as Indians. And you will recall, if you read the American history, that when the Europeans got here, they also attempted to put the people here in slavery.
Yeah.
And one way that they created the slavery institution in America was to divide the dark from the light, the dark skin from the light skin. And as we know, there were those who were called Indians who were very dark skinned.
Here we speak of the Nanacoke,
Right.
the Mohawks, the Mohicans,
And
the Chippewas, the Seminoles.
and the Seminoles, right.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
And slavery, the dark ones, they were sought out for slavery. And many of the so-called Indian tribes were bribed and threatened to sell the dark ones into slavery, or to turn over the dark ones into slavery. Many of them rebelled. And so they began to fight their way from the northeast to the southeast, and most of them ended up in Florida. And they were called the Seminoles. These were the dark ones, along with some of their lighter-skinned brethren, who were running from the institution of slavery. Right. And the history of the United States is replete with many examples of our people here in America, the dark ones. There are even photographs of them wearing turbans here in America, who were fighting against the institution of slavery, and they ended up in Florida. And they were called runaways, those who refused to go into slavery. These were people who were native to America.
They were already here.
They were
and they were aware that they were Moors.
Right. They were the original inhabitants of America. So, to your question, that you said that some people pose that they don't want to be called Americans.
Absolutely.
Well, you can't give that up, because we are the original inhabitants of this land called America.
That's right.
The dark ones, just like me and you.
Right.
So I'm very proud to be called a Moorish American. I claim my heritage from my brothers and sisters on that side of the Atlantic, as well as my brothers and sisters on this side of the Atlantic.
Interesting.
I'm very proud to be both.
You know, some of our people will even tell you, they'll say things like, well, I have some Indian blood in me. My grandmother is Cherokee, or my grandfather is Seminole. What does that mean? That means that that's who you are.
That's right.
These people, in essence, were called Indians, but they are Moors.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And they were already here.
Already here.
Already here.
Long before Columbus got here.
Right.
We were already here.
That's right.
I think Columbus wrote in his journal that he says, I
did.
find, would you like to quote that for us, brother?
Paraphrasing,
Okay.
he spoke of the fact that there are some dark-skinned people here.
I think he used the word Moors,
He
which
could
was,
have.
which
He
was
could have.
commonly used
Yeah.
throughout Europe.
Yeah, he could have. I know when I read it, it was a more of a translation, but from what I understand, it was a quote from his original journal
Right.
in his handwriting. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss is the word Negro colored and black. Because, you know, in order for people to understand that they have to be something other than Negro colored and black, they have to understand the words Negro colored and black. You know, the word Negro, as we know it, has Spanish origins. And it's an adjective. It's used in Spanish language. Negrata as an adjective. And the adjective means black. And of course, we know an adjective is used to describe other nouns and pronouns.
It's the articles in place.
Yeah, it describes it can describe a thing, but it definitely cannot describe a people.
That's
because a person is a noun and an adjective is not. Therefore, to use the word Negro, which as we know was very popular at one time with our people, is to say that I am a thing. Because in essence, it describes things. It describes nouns. Now, if it's describing a noun, you would have to wonder who and what it is it describing. What type of trick is being played here? The word colored, according to our prophet Noble Jew Ali, it means anything that has been stained, varnished, or dyed, in the sense that our people have been tampered with. You know, truly colored is not a nationality. And of course, we know black. Black, according to science, means deaf. It means nothing.
That's an adjective too, is that right?
Definitely. It cannot, if you look in the dictionary, it gets into the ugliness of the word.
Like what, for instance?
Dismal, gloomy, void of light, void of consciousness. It's basically telling the people that something's missing. And then at the end it says a race of people. But if you look at the concept of white, black, yellow, red, and you understand that these are colors and not nationalities, then you'll understand that they are not descriptive of a people, less known a race.
Good point.
And the reason why is that when you go to places like the United Nations, or you go to your own government, they deal in terms of nationalities. They deal in terms of national descent.
Not how you look.
Not how you look, but where you're from. Now, for those who think they're just from America, then maybe that would apply to them. But for those, and we know most people came to America.
Mm-hmm.
Most people. The European,
United States of
the United States of America.
Yes.
The European came from Europe. Those Asiatics that came from the motherland came over here into the United States of America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If that be the case, the question is, what was your nationality? What was your forefathers' nationality prior to you being here? Because you are what your forefathers are beyond any doubt or contradiction, because that's something that cannot change. Can you imagine telling an Irishman that now you're Scottish?
Well, why not just say, give him an adjective? I'm sure he wouldn't like that.
You cannot, well, if it's a good adjective, if you're calling me white and you associate it with everything that's pure and good and lovely, I may go for that. But if you give me something that's associated with funerals and death and negativity and evil, then what does that do for my psyche? What you've done, you've obliterated my history. Because now, the only history I have is that which has started since the Civil War. And that, any history that has a beginning has an end. It means nothing because you can trace it. But when you talk about the Moorish history, it transcends the United States of American slavery experience. It transcends that. And in transcending that particular experience, you discover that people have nationalities. And nationalities is what gains one's entrance into a country.
Excellent. And without nationality, I think I remember reading something from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali when he says that if you go to any country in the world and you cannot state your nationality or your line of descent, you are misused, abused, and people just do anything they want to do to you, and they say things like, well, who's going to take up for you?
Right.
You don't have any connection to anything or any sovereign power. You don't have any connection to any people of free national standards of national origin. So I can kick you around. So I think that and as we are touching on that, that's a subject that we need to kind of bring out front if we can on this show. Well, if you don't have a nationality, what are some of the worst things that you can experience?
You don't have any legal status in the government. You become an undesirable in that particular government. And all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon you, they can do so. And the world will turn will turn the other way when they won't even acknowledge that it exists, because you don't have a nationality.
Right.
You are nobody in the world.
Right.
And that's what took place here in America with regard to our people. When our people got to the point where they thought that that nationality was no longer important and that their religion was no longer important, what they really were doing were making it possible, were opening the door for slavery itself, because it could not have been done. They could not have been enslaved if they had continued to refer to themselves as free Moors. It could not have been done. The reason why it could not have been done here in America, in the United States of America, that is because the United States of America had just signed a treaty with the Sultan of Morocco.
What year was this?
1787.
1787.
Had just signed a treaty with the Sultan of Morocco. And if our people had continued to call themselves Moors, there would have been no way that the United States would have permitted those people to be enslaved here in North America. But on a technicality, if they stopped calling themselves Moors and allow themselves to be called Negroes, Colors, and Blacks, or call themselves Negroes, Colors, and Blacks, technically, they're no longer connected with the Sultan of Morocco. They're no longer connected with any sovereign nation anywhere. So if the Sultan came to the United States and say, are those some of my people? The United States could say, no, these are just blacks. These are not Moors. You can ask them. And if they answer that they are blacks, then the Sultan has no choice, even though he may know for a fact that these are part of these are his subjects. If they have proclaimed to themselves, to the world, that they are Negroes, that they are colored, that they are black, then they have turned their backs on their country, on their own country, and on their own forefathers, and on their own history. And so slavery then, that's how slavery came about for our people here in North America, because of what we did. We opened the door. And to prove the point that you can't be a citizen of the United States of America unless you proclaim a nationality, any naturalized citizen, or it doesn't have to be a naturalized citizen, anyone coming to the United States of America seeking entry for any purpose whatsoever, when he comes through immigration and naturalization, there's a form that he has to fill out. And on that form, he has to declare what his nationality is under penalty of perjury. And if he lies about it, he can be deported. So everyone who comes here must say who they are. They must declare what their nationality is. Even from any country in Africa, he can't say that he's black. He must say that he's a Nigerian, or he's a Ghanaian, or he's an Egyptian, or he's from Sierra Leone. He can't say that I'm black, Negro, and colored, and expect to be admitted into the United States of America. No.
It says
it's true for white. You can't say that you're white.
And we're talking about law.
Right.
We're talking about law now.
So in other words, a Moorish American is a law-abiding citizen.
That's right.
Well, on the application it says country of origin, and you have to put something there, because if you don't, they deny the application automatically.
You know, with nationality, this has to come up. With nationality is almost oftentimes associated with religion. What is the religion of the Moorish Americans?
Oh, Islamism, beyond a doubt. Our forefathers practiced Islam. There's no question about it. And they prepared Islam for us, for our earthly and divine salvation. So our hands are bound. You know, we have no choice but to practice the principles and creed of our forefathers. We have no choice in that matter.
So anyone who's out there calling themselves Negro, black, or colored has the opportunity to not only become a law-abiding citizen of the United States of America and be recognized as a free national around the world, but they also have the opportunity to plug into their forefathers' religion as well.
Absolutely. In fact, just as they cannot be Negroes, colors, and blacks, they cannot be Christians either. They cannot be Christians. Only the Europeans can be Christians, because the Christianity was prepared for them by their forefathers 326 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, when they created Christianity. But our forefathers already had religion long before then. According to the treaties, that Christianity could not be forced on our people. According to the treaties that the Christians had with the Muslims, that Christianity could not even be forced upon our people, and it wasn't. But again, when our people turned their backs on their forefathers, they opened the door for their enslavement, and after that, then to be taught that they were Christians. But they cannot be Christians. They're not recognized as Christians. Not really. They may call themselves that, but they are not recognized as Christians.
You know, if I may, Brother Bay, one of the things that that occurs in international law is that one country cannot get into the internal affairs of another country unless that country is mistreating its subjects. And usually, when that occurs, there are international courts, such as the United Nations. There is even a court called the International Court of Justice that countries do apply to for justice and are bound by, per their own agreements. So one of the things or benefits that a person with a nationality has is that upon being mistreated or abused, that person's sovereignty has the obligation and opportunity to speak on behalf of those subjects. And that's something that did not occur with our people during the slave trade. You would almost wonder, why did the world sit back and watch people get abused in such a brutal way? Why did it occur? And as Moorish Americans, of course, and having the consciousness of Noble Drew Ali and enlightenment of Noble Drew Ali, we know that it occurred as a result of not having a nationality, therefore not having our sultan, our government, to intervene and said, hey, those are my people, and you cannot treat them like that and get the backing of the world community.
That's it.
It didn't occur. And the reason why it didn't occur, because we turned our back on our forefathers' national and divine creed.
That's it.
We turned our back. We started calling ourselves those things that delude to slavery. We started calling ourselves Negroes, Coloreds, and all of those other names that were given to us, that we adopted, and we went into the Christian faith.
Yes.
So we could not be recognized
Or respected.
or respected. Well, we could, our sovereignty, the place where we're from, Morocco, they could not even come to our aid and assistance because they could not say, this is my subject. Thus, they're bound by this Moroccan treaty, and you cannot treat them thus, unfairly, unjustly. And the reason why they couldn't do it, because we did not confess our own.
That's right.
We did not say that we are, in fact, Moorish American Muslims.
But now we can.
But now we can, and
We have
we're,
the
and we're
Yes.
yeah, and we're saying it loud
Very loud.
to our audience. We're saying it loud enough for you to hear and for you to come in and proclaim your nationality as well. Now, the religion of the Moorish American Muslims is Islamism. That religion is a very old religion. Now, I remember reading the Prophet's teachings, and he says that our flag, the Moorish flag, and I hope the camera can see that behind our guest here, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center. He says that flag is over 10,000 years old. So we'd have to say our religion is over 10,000 years old as well. And I like to basically sum the religion up in a few words, and you're pretty good at this, Brother P. Davis Hill. And that is Islam. If someone said, well, what is Islamism? Islamism is basically the religion of treating each other right. That means I'm bound to treat you right, you're bound to treat me right. But when you're treated wrong, that's when conflict comes. And since we're on the religion of the Moorish Americans, how old are the Moorish Americans? What did the Prophet Noble Drew Ali say that the Moorish Americans were called before they were called Moorish Americans or Moroccans?
They were known as the ancient Moabites.
Mm.
So we
Ancient
can even
Moabite.
go back even further, right?
Oh, indeed. Indeed.
What does that mean to be able to go back further to the ancient Moabites? What does that mean?
Well,
What kind of edge does that give the Moorish Americans?
you can connect yourself back with the family of nations. You have the opportunity to connect yourself back historically in an ancient way. Because we know that if you came from a nation or a group of people, then you have to have an origin. You have to have a divine origin. And when you start talking about the Moabites and Hittites and Amorites, you're talking about ancient, and you're talking about divine
And
people.
the Israelites.
Yeah, you're talking about divine people. Because from a historical or biblical perspective, everybody came from somewhere.
Mhm.
You know, people didn't just pop up. They came from somewhere. And, you know, we know the Egyptians, they came from the Hamathites.
Let's say the English. They came from where? The Anglo-Saxons?
The Angles.
Yeah, Angles, yeah.
And the Germans came from
the Germanic
the
tribes.
Visigoths?
Yeah.
The Visigoths?
Yeah, the Visigoths,
Okay.
yeah, indeed, indeed. The Salves with the Swedes, yeah,
They have, everyone has a modern name now.
indeed.
And the modern name for the ancient Moabites is
Moroccans.
Moroccans.
Right.
And the Moorish Americans are descended
The Moroccans.
and
Born
born
in
in
America.
America.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, that's some powerful knowledge.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
indeed.
You know, and we wonder why, or I mean, some of us wonder, well, where did they get this from?
Mm.
How do they know this? Where's this coming from?
Okay.
How do we know we were Moorish American Muslims, and our religion was Islamism? How do we know all of this, I. David Seal?
Yeah, you almost have to wonder, how did Shakespeare know that Othello was a Moor? I mean, it was widely known. It was, you know, one of the things about our people is that they were put to sleep. And you know, when you're not conscious of something, and it's around you, you still don't know the significance of it, and that's so unfortunate. Because you know, when even this movie that came out, it was called Robin Hood. You remember it had a Moor in there.
I think Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
The actor Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, he played the Moor. You know, he was known as the Moor, and he was respected as the Moor, and he practiced Islam. But so many people watch the movie for its entertainment value as opposed to its educational value. Because it's telling you, you are in fact a Moorish American. And we always say, be what you know. Go to any library. Go to a dictionary and look up the word Moor. It's in a dictionary. And you'll discover that it in fact does exist. Come to the Moorish Science Temple of America. Learn more about your forefathers' ancient and divine creed.
As taught by
Our prophet Noble Jew Ali.
There you go.
And he gives us the words. He gives us the inspiration to study. He gives us the understanding. You know, understanding, we said, is the rock upon which man can build himself and thus be what he knows. And it's so wonderful to see young children stand up and say, I'm a Moorish American, and just see them filled with so much pride.
It builds your self-esteem.
Oh.
Yeah, I can look at, I know we can all look at our children and say the same thing.
Oh, yes.
As we look at ourselves, you know. It builds your self-esteem, and it helps you to compete more in the world of other people with nationalities. And we're not talking about separating ourselves from other groups who have a nationality and proclaim their nationality as well. We're talking about adding to it, more or less. But, you know, let's, if you may, the question I asked earlier, you gave me a good answer, brother, and I'm sure our audience appreciated that answer as well. And I was looking for that. And we're getting this knowledge from Noble Drew Ali.
Absolutely.
We didn't know any of this until Noble Drew Ali came along and established the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913. We always like to hold him up. We like to put him in front of us. We like to let him do our talking for us. One interesting thing, amongst many things that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali shared with us, he said this. He says, I didn't come to save you. I came to start you to thinking so that you can save yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And when a man starts thinking, he's putting himself in position to save himself. Save himself from what? From being no one, from being rejected, from being misused, abused, and being dumped on by anyone in the world who cares to dump on him, because he can't say what his nationality is.
You know, during slavery time, it's very interesting that you make that point, because during slavery times, one of the things that a slave was prohibited from doing, and that was reading. That was hitting the books, because, you know, it was said that once a slave started thinking, he was corrupted. He was no good. We say that, as the Prophet Noble Ali says, that once a man starts thinking, he can save himself. Thus, he becomes free. He's no longer a slave now. He's free.
That's right.
And that's the key. That is what we're about. We're about freeing our people mentally from mental slavery, which they now have.
Which brings me to some of our closing remarks, because we're going to have to close out pretty soon. So I'm going to ask each of you to briefly, just take a few seconds briefly, to tell our audience what are we trying to accomplish by proclaiming our nationality as Moorish Americans. We'll start with you, Brother I. Davis Hill.
Oh, indeed. Well, we're trying to accomplish the nationalizing of our people. We're trying to accomplish economic security among our people, because we know that through economic security, we can achieve much. We can develop home ownership among our people. We can develop businesses among our people. We can live peaceably among each other through practicing the divine creed of our forefathers of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which are divine principles. Our people are in dire need of knowledge of that which was, is, and evermore to be, as Jesus said, the truth, because we know it frees you. So definitely, our people are in need of a nationality which is the knowledge base of self. That's what they're in need of. Because once you're free, you can dare to do wondrous things. Wondrous things.
Very good.
Once you're free.
Very good. Brother P. Davis Hill?
Of course, I agree with everything that
Briefly?
the brother just said. I'll try to be brief as possible. We're trying to uplift our people. We are also involved in the great program of uplifting fallen humanity. And we want to be a part of saving this land that we love from the great wrath which is sure to come because of what's taking place here in America. We know that during the process of slavery, our people were so thoroughly stripped of all knowledge of themselves that it's pretty difficult for us to reach them. And so we're asking for some help. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali asked for some help. He, in a divine plea, he said, I need moral support and finance from other citizens here in America, particularly those of European descent. I need moral support and finance because you did such a good job of taking away the mind of our people that it's difficult for us to reach them. We want you to push them in this direction. We want you to tell them that they are not Negroes, colored folks, and black people. We want you to tell them that. We want you to tell them that they are not really Christian. We want you to tell them to go and investigate and join the Moorish Science Temple of America. Now, by doing that, you will relieve yourself of a great burden. Because having done such a good job of brainwashing our people, we can fix the problem. And if we don't succeed, then there's a terrible wrath to come upon this land that's called America.
Thank you, brother. I know it's kind of difficult for you both of you Moorish scholars, to try to wrap up your comments very shortly. But we'd like to say thank you, Brother P. Davis Hill. Thank you, Brother I. Davis Hill. And by the way, they are brothers in many ways. Listening audience, we thank you. And we want to invite you to come out and see us. You've probably seen our address and the times that we meet roll across the screen. Come and see us and learn of your nationality and divine creed.